What's up, guys? Frankie Finn here. Little quick off-the-cuff retraining for the 3 levels of lifestyle agency wealth generation. This is so you get money coming in the door, you expand your operation, and then you create like lasting generational wealth and actually have it stay in your hands and your family's hands and so forth, where you get to make an impact. This is a little bit inspired by our man Piyush. Posted in the group. Basically, how should I allocate my money? Different levels: basic necessities, business expenditures, self-growth, savings, investments, wants. And by the way, I'm not a big fan of the word should. So this is not a what you should do kind of training. This is just what Frankie Finn does, and I hope you guys get some use and value out of it. And for those of you guys who want the same kind of lifestyle that I'm building or want your own version of that, this will be useful. By the way, for those of you guys who are just stumbling on YouTube and don't know me already, my name's Frankie Finn, and I wrote the book Beyond the Agency Box since 2007. I've built 3 different agencies to 100 plus simultaneous clients, and I've helped hundreds of people to live the whole kind of agency beach laptop lifestyle. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's get into the good stuff here, the meat and potatoes. So stage 1 is kind of like when you're just starting out your agency, you don't really have any clients, you're just trying to get going. Like your goals financially are not super complicated, which is why I call the stage like brother's got to eat, right? Like for real. I'm actually eating right now. I'm going to take a little spoonful of rice. But anyways, like your goals aren't super complex. So all you got to do in that stage is get some clients, and your goal really is more than anything. Like the first milestone is to cover your basic bills so that you don't need a job, you don't need some external third-party source, you don't need any investments. Depending on where you live in the world and what's going on in your world, that can be anywhere from like $1,000 to like $10,000 a month. Like if you're in California and you're in busy area of LA, or San Francisco, you're probably gonna need $10K a month to live minimum. As where, if you're living in Vietnam and you got the digital nomad lifestyle and you're single and you don't have any kids like mine who were just knocking on the door a second ago, that's going to be a lot easier, right? So kind of depends where you're at. So again, there's no should, but I'm just giving you like kind of a guideline of how much cash you're going to need. First milestone, it's really not that complicated. You just got to get your bills. But then you're going to reach a second stage where once you cross the threshold where your bills are covered, it's like, what do you do with the money that you have now? Like let's say, for me, when I first started, I wanted to hit $5,000 a month. I did it. It was really fucking cool. And then eventually, like a short time later, I hit $10,000 a month, which was my second goal in business in 2009 or whatever. And when I did that, it was like suddenly, okay, I have $5,000 extra a month. Like, what do I do with it? And I didn't really have a fucking good answer at the time. But I think the answer I have today is what I call the pinky in the brain, stage 2. What are we going to do tonight, brain? Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world. So you're thinking like expansion, right? And the biggest actually motivator, at least for me, is expansion, is because now that you're having some results and it's working, like you want to build something that's stable. Like if you have 3 clients at $5,000 a month, that's really cool. But like one of those clients could go missing, or like you could lose 2 clients, and then your business would like almost go right back to zero, right? So you want to build some stability, and to do that requires actually expanding, right? To like build systems and basically to take your little freelancer hobby and turn it into a real business. And so the goal to me at that point is more than anything is just to make your machine stable and consistent, so you're actually going to get some clients. And so most of what you're buying is, at least for me, is I'm buying paid ads to expand the marketing. I'm buying paid help to help me with the deliverable and the fulfillment and all those kind of things. And sometimes that also, I guess, should be like tools. Tools help you. Like, you probably will have 5 times as much software in this stage as you did in the last stage, because you got more moving pieces, and you might have project managers and lead pages and a bunch of tools that just make your life easier. Whatever those are for you. Some of you guys have like go high level. And then you're also investing skills strategically. So these are courses, trainings, mentors, events, things that you know are going to upgrade what it is you're doing. And so again, it depends on your goal of what achieves your lifestyle and what hits your expansion. Like you may have a ton of breathing room at $10,000 a month, especially if you're living somewhere like we lived in Thailand. You could probably survive in Thailand for like $1,000 a month, right? Like $10,000 goes a fucking long way in Thailand, right? Like you're obscenely rich at that price. But In Southern California or in San Francisco, that's like that's barely the poverty line, right? So it depends where you're living. So you may want to go anywhere from like 10K to 250K. This also kind of just depends on your little bit of ambition, and also you're also thinking about as well, like having a bigger impact with what you're doing. You're starting to see the results of clients and you believe in what you do. So you're like, man, like it's so awesome this client thanked me. I want to do more of that, and you want to make a bigger impact as well. But usually your biggest goal is just to make your machine stable and consistent. At some point, you actually build a machine that is self-sufficient and like is in anywhere from the 10,000 to 250,000 a month, and it's covering all your bills, plus you have like this extra amount of money. And even though your bills are probably higher now because you have tools and you have staff and things like that, like there's some spread there and you have this extra money coming in. It's like, now where do we go from here? And this is kind of the stage that I think you're alluding to, is like, what do you do to build some generational wealth? And it helps, by the way, even if you're here, to know what it's going to look like if you're here. But if you're here now, this is going to be extremely useful for you. So I got a little joke for you guys. The Nigerian man says, an 80-year-old man died in Nigeria. They found $15 billion under his bed. During his years, he tried to give away that money, but no one responded to his emails. Just a joke, right? I actually have a quick little funny story. I have a niece who used to work at one of those like payday loan stores, or like a Western Union kind of thing. And they have to stop people at least once a day from sending money to a Nigerian prince. True story. They're like, are you sure you know this Nigerian man? Because there's a scam going around. Oh, no, it's not that. So what your goal is in this stage is now to make your money work when you're not. And you can start this sooner, by the way. But you become very, very aware of it in that stage because all your monetary needs are met. There's excess coming in every month. And you're like, what do I do with the excess? And so my goal with that is what I call endless compounding wealth. And cool little story about that. Tony Robbins has an investment book that really kind of opened my eyes to the power of compound wealth. So there's a dude who was like a U.S. postal worker, and he invested, I think it was like 25 grand into index funds. So for those of you guys who don't know, he invested in something like the Vanguard Index or Vanguard 500, which is a share of the top 500 companies in the world. And there's lots of ups and downs to the stock market as well. But over like 100 years, it's averaged about a 10-11% return. So after like 35, 40 years, he decided to take this out. I don't remember if it was 35 or 40, but it was a long period of time. But his money had made 10, 11% the first year, 10, 11% the next year. Not like in a straight line, but nonetheless, it like compounded and compounded. And he had $1.8 million. Like enough to retire and do what he wanted to do forever. And he started with just 25 grand. So that's like the power of compounding wealth. It's like, that's just 10 to 15%, and there are bigger opportunities than that. So I think what you're buying is assets that meet, like I'm usually looking for 3 criteria. Sometimes not all 3 of them together, right? Like sometimes you're just looking at one. Sometimes I buy investments that like produce cash today. So like mortgages and loan notes, I'm big on those. We mentioned the stock market can do that. Even though crypto is down like massive amounts right now, there's lots of opportunities to cash flow in crypto. And you can buy businesses, you can buy land, you can buy real estate. But I'm just looking for like, I'm not trying to hit the moon with it. I just want to know that it produces cash flow today. So like I have a very wealthy friend who buys mobile home parks. He says every time I spend $100,000, I want to buy $15,000 a year worth of rental income. Right, so that's simple math for him. If the park goes up in value, cool, but he's just buying the $15,000 a month or a year today. Also looking for the capacity to appreciate, meaning like if I buy a $100,000 house today, can it be worth $200,000 tomorrow? I would never depend on appreciation, by the way. This is the one that I never have by itself because otherwise you're just speculating. Like what most people do is they like just hope shit will go up in time. It can do that, but I'd never depend on appreciation alone. Appreciation to me is like the bonus part of it. So like if I buy a piece of real estate and it cash flows today and it just happens to go up in value, that's fucking awesome. But I'm not depending on the going up in value to happen. And then the last thing is, can be bought with leverage. Now this is probably scary for a lot of people, but if you know what you're doing with these, especially if you buy stable assets, like if you're buying $100,000 worth of real estate, you're probably not paying $100,000 cash on it. You're probably leveraging, meaning you're borrowing at least some of the money from the bank, anywhere from like the whole 100%, depending on the situation, the credit, to more like 75% typically. So that allows you to buy more of assets. So like your numbers actually get bigger. Like for example, let's say let's say you buy $100,000 house and it makes $1,000 or $800 a month in rental income. Well, that's $10,000 a year approximately. So that would be a 10% return on a year. But if you didn't, you have to put down the whole $100,000, and you only put down $10,000 and you borrowed the rest from the bank, and it's still cash flowing, $800 a month, and you get, $10,000 a year, then you're actually doubling your initial investment, right? Because you put down $10,000 and it's producing $10,000 a year. Plus, there could be appreciation in there, where like if the house suddenly goes to $200,000, you've gained $100,000 in equity, and you only risked $10,000. So that's the power of leverage, right? When you understand that, is you can buy well beyond your capacity if you know how to do that. And the income, you don't really have income goals at this point, other than it's more like, your biggest worry is like, don't lose it. Like Warren Buffett actually has a quote, is rule number 1 of investing is don't lose my fucking money. I added the word fuck there, but point made, don't lose it, right? Like that's your goal with it, is don't lose it more than anything. I'll tell you, I've met lots of people who reach this stage, who grow big agencies and don't know what to do with it, and then end up right back here after a while. They eventually get burnt out in their agency, or their systems weren't as strong and robust as they thought, or something in the market changes, and they go back to like stage, brother's got to eat, and they have nothing to show for getting to this stage. So if you're thinking about this stage, you're usually thinking about like long term, I want to keep my money and have my money work for me. And basically the litmus test is, if you go to sleep while you were asleep, did you wake up richer or not? That's how you know you're in this stage. If the answer is yes, like something compounded somewhere for me, and therefore I'm wealthier now than when I went to sleep, then the answer is yes. But for the most part, like usually I'll tell you, most of the people I know in this stage, not all of them, but most of them have kids and are thinking about their kids, thinking like 20 years down the road if they want to go to college, or, I just want to give them a house, whatever, right? Then as far as like you asked the question about like spending the money, like what do you do to spend the money? And kind of depends where you are and what you're trying to do. But I think it's important to have a budget for at least these 3 things in your life. Like we have a budget for all 3. One of those is for fun and experiences, because otherwise what will happen is you'll sit on a mountain of money and feel bad about spending it. So the easiest way for me to deal with that is to proactively like pick a budget. And I think we spend like, Ilke and I, maybe like $50 to $100 a week just for us to go have fun and do things. Like in Mexico, that's enough. Like we don't need a huge amount of money, but it helps me just to feel good about it, because it's like I have a budget for that. I can go take us to a fancy restaurant or whatever, and most of the places here are under that price. So it just helps us like have something cool to do together. I also have a budget for investments, meaning like a certain percentage of my money always. And a lot of people think you have to wait till you're here in this stage. Like when I have $100,000, I'll invest, but you can actually start investing with like $25, like you can, or $30. You can go like one thing I would tell you, if you got $30 extra, go buy a silver coin, because that thing's going to go up in value, right? You can buy a silver coin for about $30 right now. Last I checked, anyway. So go get some silver coins, right? But anyways, like investing is like you have a certain budget where a certain percentage of your money is just going for investments. And this is cool when you have the cash flow here, because like you can make mistakes. Like, you don't need all your investments to work out. So if you want to, you can take some riskier things and you can do some less risky things, and you can, play around with it and just have fun with it. I think that's the best way to invest, is where you have cash flow and therefore you have the room to make mistakes, and you don't need everything to work out, and you can take the learning lessons in stride. And then I also have a budget for skills, which for me mostly is like masterminds, trainings, mentors, things like that can speed up my journey. But you keep a budget for it specifically, right? Because often what will come up is you'll have like like a mentor or an opportunity or a conference will come up, and you like, if you don't have a budget for it, you got to find it. But if you've been planning for these kind of things when they come up, and then I also budget probably just for like emergency a little bit as well, like like my car breaks or stuff like that. I don't like have like a huge emergency budget or anything like that, but just a little bit of cash on hand to be able to do something. But I wouldn't say that's the biggest one, but I'd probably say like this book right here will be useful to you, by the way, is T. Harv Ekerd's Secret of the Millionaire Mind. He talks about like specifically this topic, is what to do once you have money in your hands to keep it there and to keep it multiplying, to keep money working for you, so that you become the master of money instead of money running your shit. But that's basically it. It's like firstly cross the barrier where you get your food and bills covered, and then work on expansion to make the machine more stable. And when you have the machine more stable, and you can do some of this, by the way, while you're in this stage, once you have your basic bills covered, but you start thinking about, like, I want my shit to compound all the time. Like, my goal is, like, multiply money and have my money working for my money and to acquire assets in the process. And that's it. So I hope that's helpful to you guys, because it was a really intelligent question, and I think it'll be useful to you guys. Because I'll tell you, I do see a lot of people who build these agencies to this stage where they suddenly have like all kinds of like baller lifestyle stuff, and they think the gravy train will last forever. And usually the biggest reason it doesn't last forever is they just get burnt out and they can't do the business anymore. They get frustrated and, you know, crazy clients and things like that, and they end up tearing it to the ground. And because they didn't think about any part of managing their money and reinvesting into assets, they end up broke like a couple of months later. And it's always crazy to me. You know, they have the skill set to be able to get back here when they need to, but still there's no reason to end up broke at all. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. If you guys want to hear more shit like this and hear me rambling about investments, let me know and I'll talk a little bit more about it.